We'll start with Starbucks CEO Howard Schultz and his op-ed in the Wall Street Journal. You may recall earlier this week, Starbucks cut some more jobs at their Seattle headquarters, and Schultz then came out blasting the city's leadership, accusing the mayor of basically pushing socialist rhetoric, that was his term, and vilifying businesses. He said Seattle's Mayor Katie Wilson has chosen to cast business as a foil rather than a partner. Now, you may recall back in March of this year, Schultz came out and said, my wife and I we're out. We've already moved to Florida. And he kind of cited some like early retirement moves and family motivations, which may well be the case, but it was odd timing. Of course, that was just right before or right as the millionaire's tax was being debated in Olympia. So a lot of people took that for his timing of announcing that to say, really, are you saying this now? Maybe because you don't think that the income tax is a good idea. Well, in his op-ed this week, he made clear that that's kind of what he meant. And he was concerned about the mounting tax and regulation climate, the anti-business climate in the state of Washington. He mentioned how Governor Ferguson and majority Democrats have emphasized taxation rather than reform. And he believes it's backfiring. He's seeing it. And I'm sure in the circles of people that he's associated with, he knows full well what's going on. So I'm going to put up this graphic and show you part of what he had to say in that op-ed for the Wall Street Journal. He was talking about the Microsoft, Amazon, Boeings of the world that have created such incredible opportunities for people to make better than a living wage in the state of Washington. But then he said that ecosystem worked because risk taking was rewarded, growth was possible, and civic leadership, while imperfect, understood that private enterprise was not the adversary of the public good. It was one engine for improving the public sphere. He went on to say that ecosystem is fractured today. Seattle and much of Washington face serious problems: chronic homelessness, disorder in core business districts, persistent budget deficits, declining public school outcomes, and a slowing technology hiring cycle. He's very concerned about how the state is responding to those things. So if you haven't checked out that op-ed, which I think came out Tuesday of this week in the Wall Street Journal, I would encourage you to do so. He also talked about the high crime rate. Even though some more serious felony crimes, murder and the rape and the like, have gone down, property crimes and vandalism, those numbers and lower level crimes have just shot through the roof. And then, of course, there's lax prosecution for any of those lower level crimes, not just in Seattle, but statewide. So very interesting that Schultz's timing comes out now, as many other prominent business leaders have also been coming out with their resistance to the income tax. And I spoke last week to Seattle City Councilman, probably the most moderate member of the left-leaning council, Bob Kettle, about the business exodus. Again, you recall Seattle Mayor Katie Wilson took a lot of flack when she recently, waved kind of a flippant goodbye to the wealthy and to, business that would decide to relocate because of the income tax, kind of dismissing those legitimate concerns. Well, Kettle, again, probably the most moderate member of the council, he told me in our interview, he thinks that's a really bad way to respond to these legitimate concerns.
I have serious concerns, and so much that I have an op-ed that was in the not too long ago, maybe 6-8 weeks ago, in the Puget Sound Business Journal. I am seriously concerned because we do not live on an island. There's a concept called regulatory arbitrage, and when we have a situation where we have the east side jurisdictions, Bellevue and the like, and it is too easy to move to the other side, we cannot be ignorant of that. We cannot be looking away from that. And we need to be smart and pragmatic in our approach. I support business. And by the way, the political kind of thing is to say small business, but no, it's the entire ecosystem, because even small businesses rely on large businesses. Amazon is headquartered in my district. I know small businesses that were having a hard time during the pandemic because of the remote work that they had to shut down. And so we need to be pragmatic and smart about this and engaging and don't think that we live on an island. So we need to be looking at our fiscal and tax policy because for every action, there's a reaction. And this applies to tax policy as well. And so we need to be smart so then we don't, basically cut our nose to spite our face. That, we have to be prudent in terms of what we're doing. We have to think strategically long term and not just look for the short term quick fix, and which was highlighted in a recent editorial from the Seattle Times regarding Olympia. Because everything in that editorial from the Seattle Times that was talking about Olympia also applies to Seattle in one way or the other. And we have our equivalents. And so we need to be mindful of that. We need to be pragmatic, and we have to have a long-term strategic vision and of what we're doing on tax policy. And so I welcome having Starbucks in our city, Amazon, all the other countries. I have tech, I have Google, I have Meta, Facebook, I have Expedia, Tableau. All these companies are here. And then there's the traditional companies. I support having them there because at the end of the day, as I said earlier, we have to set our business up for success too. As I said earlier, my goal is to set up individuals, organizations up for success. In the long term, they're the ones who create the revenue that we use in order to lead with compassion for those that are on the streets. But it's critical and that we also look out for our neighborhoods, but also to our communities, to include our business communities, because if we don't also look out for our neighborhoods and those various communities to include the business communities, long term, we're not going to be there for our people.
So clearly he is concerned about the sort of anti-business, um, entrepreneur, tax the rich policy and direction, the whole tone, not just in the city of Seattle, but the state of Washington. Unfortunately, on the council, he's probably the only member, at least that I've heard publicly at this point, being willing to call that out.